Welcome to Buzz Around the Globe. Russia is making a huge claim to support its accusations of a Ukraine link to the terrorist attack on a concert hall that killed more than 140 people in Russia. Russia says it has evidence that the perpetrators of last week's massacre at a concert hall outside Moscow were linked to what they say Ukrainian nationalists. President Vladimir Putin and his security services continue to allege Ukraine and the West were involved somehow in the March 22nd attack, despite an Islamic State affiliate having already claimed responsibility. Putin is hell-bent on proving Ukraine is responsible for this terrorist act. Russia's investigative committee said on Thursday that the suspects had received what they say significant amounts of money and cryptocurrency from Ukraine. Although the Russian agencies have been working hard to prove the link and they already have many suspects in their custody, but till now they haven't shown any concrete evidence to back up their claims. Ukraine and its Western allies have branded the accusations that they were involved as completely absurd. But a question that everyone is wondering about is how could the Russian security apparatus fail so massively? The March 22nd attack that killed over 140 people marked a major security failure under President Vladimir Putin, who came to power 24 years ago by taking a tough line against those he labeled terrorists from the Russian region of Chechnya waging a bloody insurgency. The lapse in security has led many to wonder how gunmen could easily kill so many people at a public event. 1 week after the massacre, here's a look at what's behind the failure to prevent the concert hall attack and the government's chaotic response to it. The answer could lie in the shifted focus of the Putin regime on quelling dissent and criticism, or even the LGBTQ movement. Hours before gunmen last week carried out the bloodiest attack in 2 decades in Russia, authorities made an addition to a government register of extremist and terrorist groups. They included the international LGBTQ+ movement. That addition to the register followed a Russian Supreme Court ruling last year that cracked down on gay and transgender people in the country. This is the same register that also lists Al-Qaeda and the Islamic State group, an affiliate of which claimed responsibility for the concert hall attack. So what we are given to understand is that LGBTQ+ activists are as big a threat to Russia's security as Al-Qaeda and ISIS. Now let's look at Russia's focus on stifling dissent. Russia's massive security apparatus has focused in recent years on stifling the political opposition, independent media, and civil society groups in the harshest crackdown since Soviet times. The repressions have only intensified after the invasion of Ukraine. Individual protesters are swiftly quashed by riot police. After the February 16 death of opposition leader Alexei Navalny in prison, mourners bringing flowers and candles to makeshift memorials were quickly detained. Surveillance cameras with facial recognition software are widely used. Many opposition groups have been branded as extremists, a designation that carries long prison terms for anyone associated with them. In fact, police in Moscow have detained 5 independent journalists over the past 24 hours, one of whom said he was beaten in custody. This is according to the OVD Info Rights Group. Russia has made on-the-ground reporting increasingly dangerous and illegal since it sent troops into Ukraine 2 years ago, arresting and fining those who defy the Kremlin's narratives. The other perplexing thing is the news that US had issued a warning of the attack earlier, but US warning was dismissed as blackmail. The US government said it told Russia in early March about an imminent attack under the duty to warn rule that obliges US intelligence officials to share such information even with adversaries. It was unclear how specific it was. The US Embassy in Moscow also issued a public notice on March 7th, advising Americans to avoid crowds in the capital over the next 48 hours due to imminent plans by extremists to target large gatherings, including concerts. With Russia-US relations at their lowest point since the Cold War, Moscow was likely to treat any such tip with suspicion. 3 days before the attack, Putin dismissed the US Embassy notice as an attempt to scare or intimidate Russians and blackmail the Kremlin. The head of the Federal Security Service, or the FSB, said the US warning was general and did not help track down the attackers. He said the FSB, acting on the tip, targeted some suspects, but it proved to be wrong. Putin and other officials tried to divert attention from the security failure by seeking to link the attack to Ukraine despite Kyiv's emphatic denials and the Islamic State affiliates' claim of responsibility. Another aspect that has people wondering if Russia was caught sleeping is the bungled initial response. It took anti-terrorism units at least half an hour to reach the concert hall after hearing of the attack. By the time, the gunmen had fled after setting fire to the venue. The security forces' arrival at the concert hall on Moscow's outer ring road was delayed by rush hour traffic, and it took them time to assess the situation as concert goers fled. Police said they were able to check security video before the building was destroyed and quickly saw the gunmen. Cameras caught them arriving at the hall and then departing in a white Renault. Russian media said that the car was continuously caught by traffic cameras as it sped from Moscow. It wasn't immediately clear why authorities allowed them to drive more than 370 kilometers or over 230 miles southwest before finally arresting them about 140 kilometers from the Ukrainian border. The messages coming from Kremlin have been extremely confusing and mixed. After the Islamic State's branch in Afghanistan claimed responsibility, Putin at first did not mention the group on the day after the attack. On Monday, he acknowledged that radical Islamists were behind the attack, but also repeated, without any evidence, that Ukraine and the West were likely involved. Those allegations were echoed by his security chiefs. He and his lieutenant said the arrest of the 4 gunmen near Ukraine indicated Kyiv's likely involvement, ignoring Ukrainian denials and the IS statement. Even the veracity of the suspect's statements has come into question after they showed signs of severe beatings and torture. At a court hearing on Sunday night, their faces appeared swollen and bruised. One had a heavily bandaged ear, reportedly cut off during an interrogation. Another had a plastic bag hanging over his neck, and a third was in a wheelchair with his eyes closed, accompanied by medical personnel. Putin's allegation of Ukrainian involvement in the attack could set the stage for him to both raise the stakes in the war and to further tighten the crackdown on critics at home. It is highly unlikely that any attempt will be made to admit and seal the loopholes in Russia's own security apparatus. Do tell us what you think about this video in the comment section, and for more news updates, subscribe to India Today.